There is a story we have been telling each other for 3,000 years. A giant walks onto the field. He is bigger, stronger, and more feared than anyone alive. Everybody already knows how this ends, everybody except one small figure at the back, holding nothing but a sling and a strange kind of calm. And then the giant falls. We never get tired of this story. We tell it in temples, in films, in bedtime stories. But the place it comes true most often, the place it comes true on a stage watched by a billion people at once, is a football pitch. Because yesterday it happened again. A team almost nobody had on their wall chart walked out against one of the best sides on the planet and walked off without losing. The favorites had everything. The ball, the talent, the history. And somehow at the end the scoreboard refused to move. The world lost its mind. And if you only watched the highlights, you would think it was a fluke. A freak afternoon, lightning in a bottle. It was not. Keep that game in your back pocket because we are coming back to it. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly how it happened and why it keeps happening. Here is the claim I want to prove to you. Giants do not fall by accident. There is a formula for killing a giant on a football pitch, and it is the same formula almost every single time. 3 ingredients: a wall that will not break, a goalkeeper who turns into someone else for 90 minutes, and a giant who, deep down, has already decided he has won. Get those 3 things in the same place on the same night, and it does not matter whose name is on the shirt. The biggest team in the world can be brought to its knees by a country you would struggle to find on a map. Let me show you the formula in action. And let me start in the desert in 2022. Argentina arrived at that World Cup as one of the heaviest favorites in living memory. They had not lost a single match in 3.5 years, 36 games unbeaten. They had the greatest player of his generation in the form of his life, chasing the one trophy that had escaped him. Their first opponent was Saudi Arabia, a team ranked so far below them that the bookmakers barely bothered. Argentina scored early from the penalty spot. The script was writing itself, and then the wall went up. The Saudi defenders did something that looked, frankly, insane. They pushed their defensive line higher and higher up the pitch, daring the fastest attackers in the world to run in behind. Again and again, the Argentine forwards timed their runs, and again the flag went up. Offside, offside, offside. 3 goals wiped off the board by a defensive line moving like a single machine. The giant kept swinging and kept hitting nothing but air. In the second half, the dam burst the other way. Saudi Arabia scored. Then they scored again, a swerving, impossible strike into the top corner. And now the wall had a job: protect a lead against the best attack on earth. Bodies in the way of everything. A goalkeeper throwing himself at every cross. When the whistle blew, Saudi Arabia had beaten Argentina 2-1. The favorites looked like they had seen a ghost. But here is the part everyone forgets. Argentina went on to win that entire World Cup. The team that got humbled in their first game lifted the trophy a month later. So how does the best team in the tournament lose to a side that finished bottom of the group? It was not a lack of talent. It was the formula. A wall that refused to break, a keeper standing tall, and a giant who walked in certain that simply showing up would be enough. Now I want you to notice something. That same pattern has fingerprints all over World Cup history. Let me rewind a few more years to 2018 and to the team that is supposed to be the most ruthless of all. Germany came into that tournament as the defending champions. Germans do not panic. Germans do not collapse. The whole footballing world is built on that assumption. And in their final group game, they ran into South Korea, a team already on its way out of the tournament, playing for pride and nothing else. You already know the shape of this. The Koreans built a wall. They sat deep, they stayed disciplined, they let the champions have the ball and the territory and the possession, and they gave them nothing that mattered. The German giant pushed and pushed, growing more frustrated by the minute, more convinced that the goal was coming because the goal always came. And the keeper behind that Korean wall had the game of his life. And then in the dying seconds, the wall did not just hold, it punched back. Korea scored. And as Germany threw everyone forward in desperation, even their goalkeeper sprinting upfield, Korea scored again into an empty net. The defending world champions were knocked out in the group stage, finishing dead last for the first time in 80 years. Same 3 ingredients: the wall, the keeper, and a giant so sure of himself that he never saw the fall coming. Let me give you one more, because this one rhymes with what happened yesterday almost perfectly. Go back to 2002, to the opening match of the entire World Cup. France were the reigning champions of the world and the reigning champions of Europe. They were arguably the most complete team on the planet. Their opponents in the opening game were Senegal, a nation playing in their very first World Cup match in their entire history. Debutants, total newcomers against the Kings, and the Kings fell. Senegal defended like their lives depended on it, broke once with terrifying speed, and scored the only goal of the game. The defending champions of the world were beaten in the opening match by a team that had never kicked a ball at a World Cup before. The whole tournament had its narrative flipped in a single afternoon. The wall, the moment, and a giant who could not imagine losing to a name he did not respect. Saudi Arabia, South Korea, Senegal, different decades, different continents, different players, but look closely and it is the same machine running every time. A team with less talent decides it will not try to win the way the giant wants to play. It will not trade punches. Instead, it builds a wall, it asks its goalkeeper to be a hero, and it waits for the giant's own confidence to become the thing that kills him. Which brings us back to yesterday. Cape Verde, a chain of 10 small islands in the Atlantic with a population smaller than a single big city. A country making its World Cup debut. Their opponents were Spain, the champions of Europe, one of the most fluent, beautiful, terrifying attacking teams in the world, and one of the favorites to win the whole thing. Before kickoff, you could have bet on Cape Verde at 28-1. The bookmakers gave Spain something like a 92% chance to win. This was not supposed to be a contest. It was supposed to be a coronation, and then the islanders built the wall. Spain had the ball for almost the entire match. They took 27 shots. 27. They passed and probed and circled and threw everything they had at a team that simply would not move out of their way. And every single time the ball finally broke through, it ran into the same man, a 40-year-old goalkeeper named Vozinha. Playing the game of his entire life, he caught what could be caught and clawed away what could not. He was the keeper in every story we have already told tonight, the one who turns into someone else for 90 minutes. And on the other side, you could see it happening. You could see the giant getting frustrated. Spain were so used to the goal coming that when it would not come, the certainty started to crack. The longer it stayed level, the more the islanders believed, and the more the champions pressed in a kind of disbelief. When the final whistle blew, the score was 0-0. Cape Verde, on their World Cup debut, 28-1 outsiders, had held the champions of Europe to a draw and stolen a point that nobody on earth thought they could take. There is the formula again, the wall that would not break, the keeper who became a legend for one night, and a giant who walked in believing the result was already decided. So here is the thing I really want you to sit with. None of these were flukes. Not Saudi Arabia, not South Korea, not Senegal, and not Cape Verde. They were all the same plan, executed by people brave enough and disciplined enough to carry it out against impossible odds. The magic of football is not that the small team gets lucky. The magic is that the giant keeps forgetting. Every generation of superstars walks onto the pitch convinced that this story does not apply to them, that they are too good, too rich, too talented to be the giant who falls. And every few years, the small figure at the back picks up the sling and reminds the entire world how the oldest story we have always ends. That is why we keep watching, not for the giants. For the moment, the giant falls, so let me leave you with this. Out of every shock we talked about tonight, Saudi Arabia toppling Argentina, Korea dumping out Germany, Senegal beating France on day one, and Cape Verde holding Spain just yesterday, which one is the greatest giant killing of them all? Drop your answer in the comments, and tell me the one I left out that broke your heart or made your year. I am reading every single one.